$100, one tank of fuel, 1,000 kilometers, an 11-hour drive for one competition. My reality did not support me going after my dream. Yet I got in the car and I went anyway. What would you do if your reality told you that your dream wasn't possible, and yet something, your whole physical being, like your whole heart and spirit said, go this way? What would you choose? Would you choose reality and not now? Or would you trust the pull of the universe and your gut and your heart and everything in you and just fuck it, fuck around and find out and see what happens? That's exactly what I did 4 days ago when I got in my car and I left my home in regional Victoria and I drove 11 hours with one tank of fuel, $100 in my pocket, 1,000 kilometers to compete in the New South Wales state titles for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I had no insurance, I had no roadside assistance, and I had no guarantee or no way, no confirmed income to get home. My next paycheck wasn't going to be for another 2 weeks. And yet I did it anyway. And this is the story I want to share with you about what happened off of the back of saying yes to that dream, to myself, and backing myself to figure it out along the way. If you are new here, my name is Chantel Thompson, and I'm a proud Barkindji Yampa woman, and I'm known in my community as the Barkindji Warrior, Warrior Heart. I'm a very proud mum of 5, and I am the matriarch, the embodiment and the founder of the Barkindji Warrior Journey to Black Belt, World Champion, my journey of being a 3-time world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a black belt, and now going for my 4th world title, which will be my first black belt world title. I'm the founder of the Kilana Foundation, an Indigenous organisation for women and youth to come back to themselves, to come back to culture, identity and story, and of the Warrior Heart movement, calling people to their hearts, to their truth, home to themselves. For those that have been told that they're too much, they're not enough, or it's not safe to be themselves in the world, to come home to themselves, that their greatest power and potential lies in their own connection, in their own identity as the seed and the source of their life, their love, their leadership and their legacy. And this is me sharing that journey. This is me sharing the insights, the lessons along the way. If this speaks to you, hit like or subscribe wherever you're seeing this. Leave a comment. Comment warrior so I know that you're here. And if you want to join me on this journey, come and join the Warrior Heart community over on School, a free community where I share my insights, my lessons, my experiences with jiu-jitsu, mental health, entrepreneurship, but my own becoming in the Warrior Heart, and how I'm using this knowledge, this framework, this movement to activate not just myself, but other people home to themselves, into their power and their potential as the seed and the source, and to raise the baselines so that their love, their leadership, their life and their legacy is from being well, from being resourced, and being allowed to simply exist in the world as ourselves. So, what happened after I got in the car and I drove? It took me 15 hours to drive. I got in at 2 a.m. because I was debating with myself. I was arguing with myself. I'm 42. I have responsibilities. I'm a mum. There's no contingency plan. What comes next off of the back of this? And I went anyway, because even though my dream didn't match my reality, I had to back myself before my life could make sense. It had to make sense to me. Now, I've been here before in previous versions of myself. I have gone from suicide to world champion. I started my first business after quitting my job when my CEO said to me, Chantel, you have to choose between your sporting career or your job because we don't have the resources to support you. And this was off of the back of me being on the national wrestling team, and I was trying out for the 2016 Rio Olympics. And I quit my job with no backup plan, no guarantees. I was already a mum of 4 at that point. I was in my 30s. There was no guarantee that I was going to make the Olympics, let alone do well in competition. And I had to raise the money to get to the competitions, to support the training, whilst also being able to take care of my family. So this isn't the first time where my reality didn't match the dream that I had. My reality didn't set me up necessarily to succeed. My life wasn't moving in that direction. What had to move was myself. Getting in the car, my head was like, this is stupid. You're being irresponsible. I was hearing everything else around me around going, this all has to be in place before you're allowed to back yourself, before you're allowed to back your dreams. The risk was real. I didn't have any insurance. I didn't have any roadside assistance. My next paycheck would not literally be coming for another 2 weeks. So I had no way to get home. The only thing I had was a very dear friend and accommodation, guaranteed. And then, hold on, I'm just gonna press the thing for the lighting. I had $100 in my pocket. I had a tank of fuel, a very reliable car, and this pull and this gut feeling that by just saying yes and by just going, it would figure itself out. I would find a way to make this work, and that I had to be at this competition. I had to show myself and my dream that I was willing to say yes, even if the world around me and this tension, this conflict between reality and my dream, and this knowledge, this knowing that I've done this before. But who I was in 2019 and back, the woman who gave birth to my children, the woman who had won 3 world titles, who overcame postnatal depression and literally went from suicide to world champion, who finished 3 degrees, who started a business off of the back of going, well, I need to take care of my family. I need to find a way to fund my own dream. I'm not waiting for sponsorship or other people to say yes. I had to find a way. That woman, I lost my connection with her during COVID. Many things happened during COVID, and I became a very different woman and went into a very different season of life from 2020 to 2025 or 2024. And then in 2025, I was finding myself again. And now in 2026, this is my becoming season. And this is what I want to share with you, is the reality versus dreaming, is that sometimes we need to say yes before it even looks like it's possible. And sometimes we need to say yes before we even believe it. This is deeper than mindset. This is deeper than motivation. This is even deeper than belief. Because I have the evidence that this is possible because I've done it before. But because of what I've experienced over the last 5 to 10 years, I internalized the narrative that others held about me. I looked at my circumstances and I disqualified myself. I tapped out before I could even try, because I was judging my potential based off of my circumstances and where I found myself. But it wasn't that simple. There were complex reasons that for the circumstances I found myself in and who I had become over the last 5 to 10 years. And yet there was a fire, there was this pull, this calling that this wasn't where I was meant to be. And this has been a theme my whole life. I will get to a point in life, I will settle in, and then I'm called to evolve and step up. But there's a gap between my belief, my reality, and that ancestral pull, that calling, that compulsion, that the change, the shift on the other side of that has to start within. I have to be willing to say yes and back myself and find the courage and the conviction that this is worth it, that I will figure it out as I go, and that if I have the calling, that's all the answer I need. That's the evidence, that is the proof. And that confidence is not it's not a personality trait. It's a skill. It's an evidence base. Confidence comes from when we know we can do something because we've got prior experience or evidence that it's possible, because we've done it. We're building the skill. And the belief comes with the evidence, but the evidence comes in taking action and that leap of faith. So that's what this was. Getting into that car was a leap of faith, but it was also self-trust and backing myself to say, you know what, I don't know if this is even going to work. I don't even know what's going to happen me getting in the car. I don't know what's going to happen when I step on the mats. I don't even know how I'm going to get home, but I know I can figure it out. I know that I'm not willing to wait for certainty, because certainty is going to keep me stuck. It's going to slow things down. And choosing movement, choosing action, that the tree can't produce fruit if the seed was never planted. You can't create a ripple effect without throwing something into the water. These trees can't provide shade if they didn't first take what they needed from the environment. They couldn't become trees that provide shade if it wasn't first a seed that was planted, and the seed then had to take root. It had to grow. And this is what I did. This was me giving myself permission to grow, to become, to back myself, and to trust that I would figure it out along the way. And I ended up winning 2 state titles. I had 4 fights. It took me 15 hours. I had 4 hours of sleep, and I had enough fuel in the car to get to the competition. I didn't even have enough fuel to get back to my friend's place, but I went anyway. And it was what shifted internally that was the most powerful experience. It was the community, the movement and the connection, the ceremony of being in community with other women that were also saying yes to themselves. And we made New South Wales state history. We had the biggest division of female black belts that Australia has seen for New South Wales. And most of the competitors all of the competitors, I think, were in their masters. So over 30 was the biggest division of female jiu-jitsu that we have seen in Australia. And I would hazard to say, with some research, that it may be the biggest combat division that Australia has seen of women competing in a martial arts at one thing, of women over the age of 30 who all have other life commitments like motherhood or full-time jobs or careers. And who I became, what shifted for me, and the evidence that became possible because I said yes and I backed myself, that is greater than the win. The win is amazing, but the lessons, the insight, the evidence, the internal shift, the belief that has been built by saying yes, now that's the win. That's the gold in this. And the women who I connected with. So if I didn't go to this competition, the woman who was in my weight division, so I competed in the super heavyweight division, Masters 3, super heavyweight jiu-jitsu division, and then the open weight. If I didn't go and compete, my opponent wouldn't have had a match because there was no one else in that weight division. If I hadn't have said yes, we wouldn't have made history. And the friendships that were made, reconnecting with the jiu-jitsu community, having another jiu-jitsu coach, a black belt, come up to me and say, hey, your podcast that you share about your journey to black belt world champion and your journey of being a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I used that to empower one of my female students for her journey with jiu-jitsu, but also competing. By me rocking up, it was already having impact. Other women seeing female black belts competing who are also mums and hold careers or businesses, that gives them proof. It gives them a roadmap from where they are to being able to compete and be high-level athletes while also being mums and older females, to the younger girls and the women, the younger girls and the teenagers. They see that they can be mums, be an athlete, and be something else. It creates possibility, it creates permission, it creates evidence, it creates a pathway, but it also challenges perceptions of what is possible, of what is allowed in a male-dominated sport like others. And we're not young females showing up. Not that I love our young women, but we are older, mature age women showing up, dominating, winning, training, competing, funding ourselves to get to these competitions, whilst most of us are being mums and coaching and contributing, and some managing careers who aren't full-time in jiu-jitsu. All of this simultaneously at the same time, and giving ourselves permission to be on the same mats as men, as teenagers, as younger women. And it's not about being ready. You become ready by saying yes to the opportunity. The experience that you're waiting for, the fitness that you're waiting for, comes on the other side of showing up. There's no getting fit before you start jiu-jitsu. You get fit by doing jiu-jitsu. You get better at competition and you get more experience by showing up and competing. And the courage to say yes when there is no certainty, that creates the evidence, that creates the feedback. The next competition is in May, which is the Victorian State Titles. And this is my journey, this is my roadmap to compete at the World Masters in Las Vegas in September of 2026. These are all stepping stones. This is all preparation for that bigger goal of my first attempt at black belt, or my second attempt at black belt world champion. The first time I competed as a black belt internationally at the World Championships was in August of 2023. But then in 2024, I said I was going to do it. But I didn't back myself. I didn't take the risk. I didn't put in place a plan. I didn't save. I didn't build the business revenue that would fund that. Then I repeated the same thing at the end of 2024. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to get sponsors. I'm going to train, I'm going to prepare, I'm going to find the money and the resources, and I'm going to go in 2025. 2025 came and went, and it was a repeat of 2024. Mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, training-wise. And I said 2026 is the year I lay the foundations for my movement, my mandate, and my millions. And it's not about belief. It's not about mindset or motivation. It's about identity. It's about creating the nervous system and becoming the woman who can carry the dream, who can be the mother and the Indigenous woman and a black belt world champion, that in a way that they all weave together. And this was me saying yes to that. And for background context, my coach lives in Melbourne, is 6 hours away. I am coaching and training myself during the week because I don't have any training partners where I live. So I'm solo training out of my garage. I'm doing my own weight training, my own conditioning, and I only train jiu-jitsu or mat time when I travel for work. So I went into this competition with, the last time I was on the mats for jiu-jitsu was in January. The last time I competed was August of 2025 when I competed at the Jiu-Jitsu National Championships in Melbourne. So this really is backing myself on a whim and a prayer. And yet, because I said yes to that, the outcomes were. The real risk wasn't the breakdown in the car. It wasn't the not knowing how I was going to get home. The real risk was in staying the same. The real risk was not believing in myself or backing myself enough to try, to find the courage to go, there is no guarantee, but you'll never know unless you try. And getting in the car was the first step. And the cost of not going for me became greater. The cost of not knowing, of not answering that what if, was a far greater risk to my self-trust, to my self-respect than if I'd stayed and played it safe, because I knew I would figure it out. I would find a way. And in order for my life to rise, in order for my life to be ready, I need to be ready. I need to go first and my life will follow. I need to grow and evolve. And then the rest will just become a ripple effect. And this was more about what this showed me about who I was becoming and what I was willing to do and who I was willing to be in this season over what I achieved. The achievement is amazing, but it's feedback. It's data for what I need to do next and how I need to train and prepare between now and the Victorian state titles in May. It now gives me guidance as to what I need to do for my physical training, my mental training, my finances to back myself. But sometimes you need to be willing to do something, even when there is no evidence, even when you don't believe, even when you don't know how. Because if you have that calling and that dream, it has been given to you for a reason, because you are the only one who can do that dream in that way in the world, in the way that the world needs it right now, through your example, through who you will become by saying yes to that. If you are still here and this has spoken to you, please hit like or subscribe wherever you're watching this. If you're watching a short of this somewhere else, please come over to my YouTube channel and hit like or subscribe. That allows the more my channel grows, the more this allows me to reach more people and serve more people through my story, through my becoming, through my journey. And if you would like to support me or you would like to work with me, come and join the Warrior Heart community over on School. Or if you would like to have me speak in your workplace, in your school, send me an email with the details below. And this is where I'm signing off, and choosing the next part of this talk is a deep dive into my thought experience, what was happening internally. And this is a shared experience for those that are in my Inner Circle membership. So if you would like to know more about that, comment Warrior Heart or Inner Circle, and I will send you some more information for us to have a conversation to see if the Warrior Heart, the Inner Circle, is the best next step for you. Welcome to my Warrior Heart Inner Circle members, to my fellow women who are on your journeys and on your path. How has your world been? What has been happening in your world? It is the start of April, as of the time of recording this. I am currently sitting on Wiradjuri country on my journey home from the competition. And I want to share with you what happened in how I resourced the rest of the trip. I had to be open and vulnerable to receiving, to allow myself to receive and to be guided, to trust that if I said yes, I would be provided with what I needed. And what I needed might not necessarily be what I wanted or would make me feel comfortable, but it would get me to the next step. And that's exactly what happened. So if you've watched the first 20 minutes before this, you'll know that when I decided to drive all the way to Sydney, in my car I had 1 tank of fuel, $100 and a place to stay. Beyond that, nothing else was guaranteed. No insurance, no roadside assistance. And I wouldn't normally recommend this to anyone else, but something was stronger than reality. Something was stronger, and it was this compulsion to go, you'll figure it out, but you need to be on those mats. You need this. You need this. Not necessarily for the outcome, but who I would become and what the experience would show me about what comes next. So I got to the competition, I competed, I had some really strong matches, and off of the back of that, I now better understand where my mindset is at, where my body's at, where my jiu-jitsu's at, and what I need to do to prepare for the next one. But while I was there, people checked in on me. A sense of community and going, hey, how are you really? And in me being able to share with some very trusted people, they offered support. They said, well, you invest in everyone. We have resources, and someone helped me at a point when I needed it, so we now want to pay it forward. So I had people pay ID me cash, and I ended up receiving enough money to support me to extend my stay in Sydney so I could have some downtime. I could have some time to just rest and play and fill up my own cup, and to do some networking, and now I have enough resources to get home and to get me to the next step. And that was the most powerful thing. That was the most powerful piece of evidence that became possible with me saying yes, is that the universe and the ancestors, whatever you want to, whatever you believe in, but for me it's the universe and the ancestors, they provided exactly what I needed for the next step. Now, that's as uncomfortable as fuck, of going, I only have enough to get me to point A to point B. And yet I have a car, I have food, I have resources, I have support. And that's a lot more than what other people have. But more than anything, I have the proof that I'm willing to back myself, that I'm willing to show up for this dream and for myself in this season. And that was the greatest win, was the self-trust and the self-respect. But also the jump in my confidence and my faith that by backing myself, by having the courage to say yes, without confirmation or without reality or without going, there's no guarantee. Obviously, I'm not going to be doing that the rest of the year. From this, off of the back of this, I'm now making a plan for the rest of the year. I'm building a budget and going, okay, in order to do this many comps, in order to be able to train and get to these things, this is how much revenue my business needs to generate. But here's my baseline. My baseline needs to be covered before I can say yes to that next opportunity. And whatever I do to generate that revenue needs to be able to take care of my family. I need to be well within myself and not burning out in the development and the delivery. It needs to align. And it also needs to come from a place of joy and things that are from my strengths and my gifts. So I now have more conviction. I have more confidence. I have more evidence of what I need to do next. But from the back of that, I also have had people come forward and offer me the next opportunity. So conversations are happening. I'm applying to do a invitation-only jiu-jitsu event that a friend and a mentor suggested that I try out for, because it'll elevate my profile if the opportunity comes through. I'll have an opportunity to see how I perform under pressure. It'll put me in front of a bigger audience. And my initial response to that, when this person came forward and said, hey, I think you should apply to do Subversion in July, was like, in my head, I was like, my jiu-jitsu is not good enough for that. And then I was like, no to this person. But then they challenged me. They said, isn't your goal to elevate female martial arts, to elevate older females competing, to elevate your culture and your story, to create opportunities, to create a platform, to have impact and influence? And then they just left me with that question. So I have people who are calling me on my bullshit. I have people who believe in me more than I believe in myself, and who are speaking opportunities or speaking my name into rooms that I'm not in. That would not have happened if I hadn't have backed myself and gone. So where are you at right now that you're stuck, or that you're feeling called to do something, but your reality isn't exactly set up to make it look like that can win, or that that's possible? What would shift if you just said yes? And how great is the risk really? And what do you have to lose just by saying yes and by having a go? And this is me grounding myself and doing some weaving and yarning before I go home to a situation that I don't feel safe in. a space that doesn't feel like home anymore. It doesn't feel like I have any, there's a lot of mixed feelings about going back to the physical place that I now call home. But in saying that, in going to Sydney, I was able to spend some very powerful time, some nurturing time with my Titta Jody. She shared some of her sacred spaces with me. She shared what's working for her. She opened a door. I recorded a podcast with a very good friend, Sam, who runs Impact Policy Podcast. I was able to get on the mats with Grace and at Higher Jiu-Jitsu at PCYC in Woolloomooloo and have some playtime. I got to have some titter time with Jody and Grace and share about culture and community. I got to meet with Dean Witters, former NRL player and amazing advocate in the sport and community space, a community leader, and yarn with him about what's happening and get some advice and guidance. And I got to have dinner with another amazing friend, Fern, who's a graphic designer, and we were talking about traveling the world and backing ourselves. So off of the one yes, I got enough resources to get home. I got culture, I got connection, I got community, I got ceremony. And the next steps became visible. And sometimes that's what it takes to create change. But the biggest win wasn't the state titles. The biggest win was my self-belief, was my confidence, was who I became over the last week of backing myself, was the self-trust, gaining back a little bit of self-trust and a little bit of self-respect. So I hope this serves you in some way. I hope this honors you in some way. And what comes next is the Vic State titles, is going home and is making a plan, is making a strategy behind the dream. If I want to get to Worlds in August or end of September, start of September, if I want to get to Christmas and have enough revenue to pay my tax, to pay myself to cover Christmas, and to start to build some savings, it's time to build a plan around the dream. And that is my next level of growth. That is my next arena. That is the next level of being a black belt world champion, but in business and self, is to nurture a relationship with money and finance, is to heal my money wounds whilst also building capability, weaving the net, weaving the basket that can hold the woman, that can weave the foundations of the movement, the mandate, and the millions in the reality, but also in the woman who can hold and be the embodiment and the steward of that wealth, of that journey, and of those resources, not just for myself, but for generations to come. Because if I say no to myself, who misses out? If I don't show up, who doesn't get to witness that possibility? Who misses out by me staying silent? What status quo doesn't shift by me not showing up? These are the questions that I'm asking myself and that are guiding me as in my becoming. There is no guarantee, but you know what? Who I become along the way, she's worth meeting. And I can only meet her by taking one step at a time. So what I'm doing right now to regulate my nervous system and to hold myself accountable to learning finance, learning business basics, letting go of my ego and starting with a clean slate, giving myself permission to close the tabs, to close the overdues and start again, to really go, where am I now? What is the vision? And who am I in that? And what needs to be done from here? There is nothing owed. Forgiving myself for what I didn't do, accepting the circumstances, it is what it is as it is. And if I'm saying yes to this dream, and I'm saying yes to becoming the woman who can birth the dream, who can be the embodiment, the matriarch, and the founder, that's my starting point. That's my permission. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking the tasks down so small that it almost feels like it's not worth doing. in the moment of going, well, if I do this, it's not really going to do much. But if I do that every single day, if I do one thing that generates money, if I do one thing that manages my money, if I do one thing that trains my body and takes care of my body, one thing that trains my jiu-jitsu, and one thing that nurtures myself and my relationships, off of those 6 things, and I do so while being culturally grounded, ancestrally guided and dreaming led, and being a mum, and being Chantel the Barkindji Ngimpa woman as the seed and the source, and raising the baselines of what love, life, leadership and legacy looks like, raising the baselines of safety, of protection, of enough, of receiving. And I do that and build my capability and my capacity, go beyond mindset and belief and motivation, and instead choose courage and conviction and the commitment to what the legacy I want to leave for my children, the legacy and the life I want to live now. My mum passed away at 42. She didn't get the luxury of living to be a grandmother, to being an older, mature age woman. I get to do this. I'm only 42. I get this whole next chapter. I get to say yes to myself. I get to live beyond survival. I get to live beyond self-abandonment and burnout. And I want to answer my own what if. I don't want to die with regrets. I want to take responsibility for what is mine to carry. I want to forgive what needs to be forgiven. Take responsibility for what is mine to own, and then let it go and start again. And start here and see what becomes possible when I stop trying to carry the world and I only take responsibility in carrying myself and what comes with being me. I hope this gives you permission. I hope this gives you possibility to lead from your heart, to stand in your power, to be your truth and to follow your heart, and to know what is worth fighting for, that you are enough, that you are allowed, and that we can create safety if we don't have it. This is April 1st. This is what's coming next. My book is coming out in October. I'm looking for sponsorship. I'm looking for partnerships. I'm going to continue to grow the Warrior Heart Rising community, and I'm going to have the courage at the end of the month to open the Warrior Heart Inner Circle and to invite women to share the journey with me. I hope this serves you in some way. I hope this honors you some way in your own becoming, and I look forward to seeing you in the community.